You'd be surprised how much a man can ignore when he wants to believe he's happy. For example, my wife Sophie had a thing for Thursdays. Not Taco Thursdays or trivia nights. No, she called them her sacred spa evenings. Emphasis on the sacred. Like a modern-day monk, she vanished every Thursday at 6:45 p.m. sharp. Hair done, perfume dialed to accidentally intoxicating, lips so glossy you could see your reflection. At first, I bought it. She said she was meeting Nora, her longtime girlfriend, the one who dressed like an Italian fashion blog and somehow managed to stay married to Felix, a guy with the emotional range of a parking meter. "I just need this," Sophie would say, slipping into a silky blouse that didn't scream facial treatment. "It's the only thing keeping me sane." "Sure, babe. Whatever gets you through the week." I'm Andrew, by the way. I write novels for a living. Mostly suspense. The slow burn kind where someone's always watching from a window or misplacing a phone at just the wrong moment. You know, the type. So, you'd think I'd pick up on the signs. But when it's your own life, everything gets blurry. Especially when you don't want to ruin the picture. Instead, I started working on a new manuscript. A psychological thriller about a jealous husband who suspects his wife is lying. Sound familiar? Yeah, I wasn't even trying to be subtle. Sophie even laughed when I read her the first chapter. "You made her a little too cold," she said, brushing her hair like nothing was wrong. "And no one actually lies that well. It's not believable." Ha! Tell that to my Thursday nights. The first real crack in the illusion came in the form of milk, or rather the lack of it. It was one of those gloomy, gray-skied Thursdays when even the birds look like they need caffeine. Sophie had already left for her deep tissue lavender massage, and I was craving cereal like a 12-year-old. So I tossed on a hoodie, grabbed my keys, and headed to the grocery store 3 blocks over. That's where I saw her, Nora, the spa partner, standing alone in line at the local Java Nest, phone in hand, sipping a cappuccino with zero intention of being mid-facial. No robe, no post-massage glow, just a leather jacket and killer boots. I didn't approach. Instinct told me to keep walking. If I called her out, she'd warn Sophie. That's how this game works. If someone's the alibi, they're usually in. On it, instead, I walked past like I was another guy craving almond milk and existential peace. Back home, Sophie returned glowing like a highlighter. Today was amazing," she said, leaning in for a kiss. "Hot stone and scalp therapy. I swear I almost left my body." I almost asked which body she left it with. Instead, I smiled and offered her a glass of wine. Then I opened my laptop and rewrote the next scene in my book. A wife describing a fake spa treatment to her husband while hiding the scent of bourbon on her breath. I read it aloud to Sophie. She laughed again. "You're twisted. That poor guy." "Yeah, poor guy." The next Thursday, I did what any half-decent writer/husband would do. I followed her. But I didn't take my Audi. That car screams midlife crisis novelist, and she'd spotted in a heartbeat. Instead, I borrowed my brother's 2006 Honda Civic, the color of dishwater, windows that don't roll all the way up, and a lingering scent of gym socks and cinnamon gum. Perfect camouflage. She left the house in her usual Thursday armor, red lips, heels she called dinner killers, and a black coat that looked like it came with a secret identity. I waited 5 minutes, then tailed her. She didn't head toward the spa, or Nora's place, or anything with eucalyptus and mood lighting. She drove out of town, past the suburbs, past the old high school, past the dog park where no one picks up after their Pomeranians. I followed her down a winding side road until she pulled into the lot of what used to be a garden center, the kind that once sold overpriced bonsai trees and now looked like the set of a zombie movie. At the back of the lot stood an old corrugated metal structure, faded graffiti, broken sign, a flickering red light over the door. She parked, got out, looked around, then walked inside. But here's the kicker. She wasn't alone. Another car rolled in behind hers. Out stepped Felix. You remember Felix, Nora's husband? The guy who once bragged for 10 straight minutes about his artisanal leather briefcase? He followed her into the building like he'd done it 100 times. I sat in the Civic, heartbeat in my throat, palms sweating on the steering wheel. A part of me still hoped maybe it was a support group, or some kind of charity thing. Maybe they were planning Nora's surprise party? Yeah, no. 20 minutes later, I saw shadows, movement. And I'm not talking the charades and cheese plate kind. It was rhythmic, intimate, glowing in pink neon like some bad French movie. I didn't need to go inside. I'd seen enough, and yet all I could think was, what the hell is that place? Later, I'd find out it was called The Verge, an invitation-only experiential art space for couples who like to push boundaries. Translation: a no-rules adult playground for cheaters in designer shoes, and Sophie, my Thursday night saint, was a VIP. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of heartbreak. That would have been too poetic. It was more like my brain had started rearranging itself, moving boxes labeled truth and routine into the attic and dragging out a dusty crate I hadn't opened in years. Instinct. Turns. Out, when you live with someone long enough, your body picks up on what your brain tries to ignore. The slight delay in their kiss goodbye, the over-explained details in a story, the perfume that doesn't match the spa brochure. The next morning, Sophie made blueberry pancakes and kissed my forehead like she hadn't spent the previous evening under a flickering red light in a decommissioned greenhouse-turned-debauchery club. She even used whipped cream and added a tiny sprig of mint, like a cooking show contestant trying to win immunity. "You seem quiet today," she said, sipping her turmeric latte from a mug that said, "Self-care isn't selfish." "Just writing," I replied. Plot twist came to me in a dream. Which was true. Except the dream also involved Felix wearing nothing but a bow tie and bragging about his stock portfolio mid-thrust. So yeah, not exactly bedtime story material. The following week I prepared. I wasn't going to confront her or start yelling like a budget soap opera husband. I needed to understand the scale of this. Was it a one-time experiment? A recurring Thursday night soap opera starring my wife and the least charming man in the Tri-County area? So I planned another field trip. Same car, same time lag. Same Civic interior that smelled like haunted gum wrappers. But this time I brought backup. My Canon AE-1 film camera. The one I used to document weird gas stations for a blog I abandoned years ago. There's something poetic about catching Betrayal on 35mm film. Feels vintage. Sophie, punctual as a tax audit, left at 6:45 p.m., dressed in an emerald green jumpsuit that looked more cocktail mixer than facial treatment. She wore the earrings I got her on our anniversary, gold with little sapphires. And I remember thinking, damn, even Betrayal looks good on her. I tailed her again, but this time, instead of heading straight to the Verge, she made a detour to a small, unmarked warehouse near the edge of town, across from an abandoned bowling alley with a collapsed neon sign that still buzzed like it hadn't gotten the memo. She parked. Waited. 2 minutes later, Felix pulled up. Same smug smirk, same Patagonia. Vest like he was ready to pitch a tech startup between sessions of adultery. They went inside. I didn't follow, but I did wait. And after about 40 minutes, I saw something I wasn't prepared for, not physically at least. A guy, maybe mid-50s, bald, wearing a turtleneck, walked out, holding a clipboard and waving them goodbye like they'd just finished a Pilates class. Behind him, on the door, was a small bronze plaque that read, The Verge, an elevated experience for evolving couples. I Googled it that night, buried 5 pages deep under SEO-optimized yoga retreats and clickbait articles like Top 10. Ways to spice up your marriage without regret. The Verge, as it turned out, was less spa retreat and more, well, imagine if Burning Man had a baby with an eyes-wide-shut house party and that baby grew up to have a wine bar and a non-disclosure agreement. There were forums, cryptic testimonials, even a waiting list. Couples paid thousands for a no labels. No questions, no judgment atmosphere, and my wife was on the VIP list. At this point, you're probably wondering if I lost it, if I screamed, flipped a table, burned the pancakes. I didn't. I'm a writer. I collect, observe, plot. Besides, this was getting interesting, like watching a car accident in slow motion. But the car was a white Mini Cooper, and the driver had a flawless French manicure. I started building a file. Not a literal one, though I was tempted. Notes in my phone, photos labeled under innocent names like Dog Park June and Mail Run. Because nothing says, I'm absolutely not tracking my wife's affair, like a folder filled with blurry Zoom shots from a Civic's back seat, and then came the twist. A week later, while scrolling through an old group photo from Felix's barbecue, the one where everyone pretended they weren't bored out of their minds, I noticed something. Nora. She wasn't smiling. In fact, she was watching Felix. Closely. Not like a woman in love. More like someone watching a microwave she doesn't trust not to explode. That's when it clicked. Nora knew. She wasn't just a fake alibi. She was the cover story. And she was over it. So I reached out, casually. Sent her a message on Instagram. Hey, you free to chat sometime? Got a story idea I'd love your input on. She replied in under 10 minutes. When and where? We met at an indie cafe downtown. One of those places that serves coffee in mismatched cups and has chalkboard menus with quotes like, "Life happens, coffee helps." She wore oversized sunglasses and ordered black coffee with oat milk, no sugar. She didn't waste time. You know, she said. I know enough, I replied. But I'd like to know the rest. Nora looked around, leaned in, and dropped the bomb. It's not just an affair. They're planning to open a bar together, a wine bar, with your money. I blinked. Excuse me? She pulled out her phone, opened an email, and showed me a PDF, business plan, logo mock-ups, budget spreadsheet, Felix and Sophie LLC, my name. Wasn't mentioned, but the startup funds? Private investor from publishing sector. That'd be me, so yeah. Thursdays weren't just about betrayal. They were about embezzlement with mood lighting and Cabernet Sauvignon. Once you realize your life's been hijacked by someone you kiss goodnight, something shifts inside you. For me, it wasn't rage or despair. It was curiosity, the kind that makes a man reorganize his sock drawer while planning poetic revenge. I gave myself 2 weeks, not to think. I'd done enough of that. No, this was for preparation. I wanted precision, like a magician setting up the trick long before the audience enters the room. First move, I hired 2 private investigators, not the trench coat kind. These were ex-cops with side parts and boring voices, the kind of men who could tail a suspect and still be invited to a PTA meeting. They delivered photos, video, GPS logs, Felix's car parked outside the Verge, Sophie's name on a silent, LLC registration, receipts from a boutique wine supplier in Oregon, charged to our joint credit card. Second move, I baited Felix. Through a ghostwriter friend, I posed as a young author who needed mentorship from a successful businessman. Felix, naturally, couldn't resist a chance to talk about his entrepreneurial vision. We scheduled a meeting at a rustic cafe where the chairs were made of recycled wood and the muffins cost more than a steak. He showed up 15 minutes early, probably hoping to impress a fictional mentee. I, on the other hand, didn't show at all. But I did watch from a corner booth behind sunglasses, sipping a cold brew and texting the detective. He's in place. While Felix waited for a ghost, Sophie was in full glam, parking her Mini outside the Premier Inn downtown, the same one she once swore she'd never stay at because it smelled like wet carpet and divorce. I didn't interrupt. Instead, I let the detectives do their job, capturing the moment she walked in, alone, then moments later, Felix strolling in with the confidence of a man who still thinks Bluetooth headsets are cool. 10 minutes later, my plan unfolded. A hotel clerk, hired for one night through a favor, delivered an envelope to Sophie's room. Inside, a simple note and a single key. The note read, "You'll find everything you deserve inside. Love, your investor." She opened the adjoining room to find no flowers, no wine, no music, just silence, and a file folder on the bed, neatly, labeled Divorce Agreement, Property and Assets. At that exact moment, a courier rang the bell at our home with another package, delivered by my attorney. Same documents. Signed and ready. All assets frozen. All funds rerouted. The wine bar? Legally dismantled before it was ever poured. I drove away from the hotel, not looking back, not needing to. My phone buzzed. A message from Nora. She just called, screaming, You okay? I replied. I'm great. Just booked a suite at the Ritz. Room smells like justice. 6 months later, my new novel hit shelves, titled White Mini Cooper and the Thursday Lie. The cover? A blurred silhouette of a woman in a green jumpsuit standing in front of a warped warehouse door lit by neon pink. Readers devoured it. Book clubs debated the ending. Reddit threads exploded with speculation. Was it fiction? Was it a memoir with names changed? I went on the late-night show, the kind with awkward desk banter and viral clips, and the host asked me the obvious. So, Andrew, come on, be honest, is this based on real events? I smiled, sipped my coffee, and leaned into the mic. A writer only needs one betrayal to sell 1 million copies. The crowd laughed. Twitter exploded. Sophie and Felix became meme fodder, especially that one image of Felix outside the premiere. In with the caption, "When your side hustle crashes mid-check-in." I didn't sue, didn't rage, didn't look back. Instead, I bought a cabin in the Catskills, got a dog, named him Thursday, because some things once exposed deserve to be. Walked daily, on a leash in daylight for everyone to see.